Welcome to the Undivide Project podcast, Changemakers Edition. I'm Monica Sanders, and part of our work at the Undivide Project is to uplift people who are working for people, the public, and the planet. And I am so excited to be joined today by Mr. Sven Erni, who is the founder of Impact Acoustics AG. Thank you so much for joining me, Sven.
Thank you very much, Monica, for having me.
Absolutely. So, first of all, tell me a little bit about your company and how and why you started it.
Well, I try to keep it short and easy. So
Okay.
we are a young company. We are now 4 years old. We are a little bit
Okay.
over 100 people strong, operating all around the world. We have three different production centers in Asia and in Europe. And we're producing acoustic solutions. So it's like we're producing products against the echo in a room. So, like, the echo from a church, for example. So, those are like products that cut down the reverberation time. And we produce those products out of sustainable materials, ideally, and that's also where our journey goes to, really to truly circular products, or if I better say, like sustainable circular products. But I think we get to this a little bit later. Um,
Yeah.
how I got this idea, it's a long journey. I'm born into a family of restaurateurs and hoteliers. So we have been entrepreneurs for a long time.
Okay.
And like being an employee, I started that in the beginning, but it didn't really work out for me. So I had different ideas. I started off as a sandwich maker. I ended up in Shanghai founding a real estate platform, and finally landed in Malaysia, where I met my co-founder and husband more than 15 years ago. He's an architect, and that's where I also developed the passion for architecture, or where I could actually live it. And at that time, like, I worked with Jeff very often on the concept. So I'm more the sales and marketing person, whereas he is the architect. And the story of products always interested me a lot. And even like 15 years ago, some initial or like first movers started to have like some sustainable products, and we put that obviously in the story, in the pitch to a project of my husband. So it was, the interest was there for a long time. And sustainability itself like reached even further, like back to the 90s, like before I finished my studies,
Yeah.
where I really I read some of the first UN reports. And at that time I was already like, I was amazed, like what actually is happening to our planet, and that everyone is fully ignoring it.
Yeah.
And yeah, back in 2019, I was working for someone, and I kind of had enough, and I thought, okay, let's try it once more. Let's. I have to say, I was not always successful. I was actually not successful before Impact Acoustic, doing my own business. But I thought, like, it's the time now, beginning of my 40s, to start once again. And yeah, that's where we are.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I love that because, we did an interview together for Authority Magazine for the folks who are listening. And I read, that you looked at those reports that were coming from the IPCC in the 90s. This was around the same time that Al Gore did the documentary Heat, which was something that I
Mhm.
watched when I was in college. And I watched this and saw all of these things happening and had the exact same reaction that you did. It's like everyone's ignoring it, or even in the worst case scenario, a term that we both have highlighted and take issue with, we're
Mhm.
greenwashing or gaslighting us since the 90s. And now we find ourselves in 2023 still experiencing this and wondering what we can do ahead of 2030. And I think a lot of people just felt a push to jump in and do what they can. And
Mhm.
you found a great potential solution to it. Um, Look, I did want to ask you something, and I suspect some of the inspiration may have been coming from your comment. Is that when I was looking at how you all do business, and you say you use the term sustainability and circular economy, but I noticed that there is accountability at every part of your supply chain. And even in some of your CSR work, you partner with nonprofits and other initiatives that are aligned along the same
Mhm.
values. How do you execute that? Because that's a lot to be done from the point of view of an entrepreneur. So, how do you actually make all of this happen?
Um, that's probably like the beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur and creating your own schedule, so you can move forward a little bit faster. So they're like shorter decision making or processes. Um, but there's no other way to say, like, we do a lot of things parallelly, and
Mm-hmm.
each day we we are happy for the new things that we achieve, and we look at the things that we did yesterday that we can actually improve. um, I can definitely say, like, Jeff and I um, are important at the moment, at the current stage of the company, really to continuously push. So we took ourselves completely out of the operations of the day-to-day business. Um, so I'm not selling anything anymore, but like I'm selling my passion. I'm leading our people, and like what really like makes me the happiest if I can convince other people, like in a talk or in an email, of great ideas, or like just push everyone, push, and how can we do it better? How can we truly like develop sustainable decisions? So we started with the PET, upcycling PET bottles. Um, and we quickly run into issues that, like, the big producers of PET, like PepsiCo, Coca-Cola, Nestle, and Suntory, like they wanted our products to use them in all their offices. And I thought, "Oh, that's not really the right way, because we are not for PET bottles. We are against it, and it's a very
Right.
very silly." A game, like to fill in tap water or filtered water in a plastic bottle, when we should actually, or our governments should actually, look out that our tap water is safe to drink. So,
Yeah.
and all this money that we spend on buying tap water in plastic, if that money could be invested in safe water from the tap, like that's a solution. So we decided, like, really, like, and I can tell you, like, our board was not happy or amused at all when Jeff and I told them, look, we're gonna turn down PepsiCo. It was actually a new headquarter of PepsiCo in the US for
Uh huh.
more than 400K. That was in our second year, so we barely were profitable. And then we turned down this, like, for us, this huge business at the time. It's still a very nice sum, obviously. And
Right.
currently, like, we turn down between $1 and $2 million in projects from those companies. So I think it's really, that's what I want to do. That's what the produce, what comes out at the end, is a product that is good. Is not good for the environment. Anything that goes out produces something, but it's better than all the other products, building products, or the substitutes to our product. um, it just makes it a little bit better, but more importantly, we have to talk about it.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that we have to talk about it. And also, I love that story because whether you're a social impact entrepreneur, you're in a tech startup, you're doing nonprofits, there comes a moment when you do have to make a value based choice as to,
Mhm.
do I accept this business proposal, this donor, or do I pass this up? Because everything comes at a cost. And you made a very critical decision that even though it would have been an influx of cash that you needed in that moment, the cost to the environment was too high, is what I'm getting from that.
Yeah, or the message would definitely have been the wrong message. That's exactly.
Yeah. When you are talking to other entrepreneurs, particularly when we're thinking about people who are starting businesses in the generation just a little bit younger than us, because I think we're both around the same age. And we're in this place where we're making the way for what we're going to leave to the next group of people. When you're talking
Yeah.
to entrepreneurs who are coming up just a few years behind us, what is some of the advice that you give them? What do you tell them about their journey? Or what would you tell them about their journey if you haven't had the
I
opportunity
mean,
yet?
really like the one and only advice. I'm always amazed about the new ideas. Um, the most important thing for an entrepreneur is to have the finances in place. That's before everything, because we cannot make an impact, we cannot change things if we don't have like our cost and the finances in place. So with all the products that we do, and I think that's the interesting thing. Sustainability, we pay more for recycled PET plastic from recycled bottles, or I would say like we use, it's a funny term, like we use post-consumer content. You know what's the contrary? Pre-consumer
Consumer
content. And what is
content.
pre-consumer content? Like in our heads, we think it's pre-used, but pre-consumer content is nothing else but virgin material.
Right.
All our competitors, like more than 95% of our competitors in this PET recycling process, they don't use recycled material. They use, they say they use pre-consumer, which is just virgin material, which is not recycled. So it's quite like this mind game. So it's really it's important to make an impact, to grow. We want to do it sustainably, so we pay more for the actual good stuff, for the recycled thing that actually makes a difference. But at the same time, we have to make money. Only when we have
Right.
when we have money, we can invest it into marketing. We can get louder, we can be heard. So it's really important. Even for NGOs, they must have. I mean, we also have NGOs, and hopefully there are more impact NGOs in the climate justice. But it's really important also for them that they have the finances under control. They have their donors under control and their spendings, because otherwise they don't get anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's when you're talking about finance, and earlier we're talking about our financial system, this is part of operating in capitalism. And earlier you were telling me a story about an interaction with, I'm guessing this was the president of UBS, and discussing where we
Nobody's,
are in
well, it was really
capitalism
high
now,
up.
high up person in UBS, about where we are in capitalism now. Um, and I'm
Yeah,
just
it's
curious.
something with capitalism. I mean, it's a very a narrow path. But I learned that day when I had this conversation, on the same day, I learned, I did not know about that there's three different levels of capitalism. There's the very early one during the colonization of our planet. Then the high capitalism, or the height of the system, was during industrialization. And since the end of the First World War, so 2008, 1918, so more than 100 years, we are now living in the late stage of capitalism. So I sometimes ask myself, and I think, what is the next thing to happen? Is there a more
Yeah,
sustainable path forward without the continuous and extreme growth, growth of our population, growth of our spendings, this continuous need to grow, because otherwise the system actually collapses. Because when you think about it, like 200 years ago, you were a farmer. I was a farmer. I definitely was a farmer. So we actually we did corn.
yeah,
My family, we did corn. So it's like Erni in German. That's actually coming from corn. So we
yeah,
needed corn to get over the winter, to bake bread, to, yeah, just to survive. But there was not such urge actually that we have to buy or build a bigger house or add another horse carriage. It was not. It was actually not part of the of this. Was not part of the game of the system. So So it's quite interesting. So I think there has to be something. Even I'm an entrepreneur and I'm part of the system, but I think in the long term, and when I say long term, over the next 20 years, there will be a shift to something else.
I think there has to be, and it's interesting that you say that, because yes, we're from very different parts of the world, but around 1918, my family too were farmers. Um,
Okay.
different different crops. Farmers are soldiers because I'm in the United States, and so we played a particular role in the Second World War. But yeah, farmers are soldiers, and looking back on my grandparents and my great grandparents' land, the house was just enough to fit everyone who lived in the house, but there was no need to have multiple cars or continually having a larger house. There was plenty of green space around it, but it was used for farming. But there wasn't this urge to continually need more or consume more. And somewhere in this last 100 years, we developed that, and now we have to undo it. And I think some people are afraid of what an alternative to capitalism might look like. And I'm curious what you think. We're in a place where we need to not necessarily be scared of it, but embrace the fact that we can even dream about what the late stage of capitalism should look like. And maybe that's something that's sustainable and green or different.
It definitely it will change. I mean, there are very interesting developments. I'm not sure if you have heard like of the projects like in the line in Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
where basically like a city like Manhattan is like just squeezed in a high rise that is 200 meters wide and then 500 meters high, and you could actually
Yes.
squeeze a whole Central Park and the whole island of Manhattan into such a small or in such a small footprint building, where you don't have cars, where you don't need to travel far. So like within 5 minutes walk, you can do your grocery, you can do your shopping. You have restaurants, you have sports grounds, you have parks, which is quite interesting. So I definitely think that there are. We don't have to. You use that word like to. Now we have to undo it. I think it's not something undo. It's a better form that we have to go participate and embrace. I think it has something has to change. There will be some parts that we simply don't feel to need anymore. But first, we need to develop the architecture around or the system.
Yeah, I think maybe not undo, because again, that is a fear inducing term that I use for some people, because undo
Yeah,
means that we're in this space where I think in order to move forward out of this position where we're over consuming and overgrowing, that somebody has to lose something, as opposed to you just may exist in a different way. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's
yeah,
winners or losers.
exactly.
um, as we're talking about this, we're talking about, urbanization and like what capitalism will look like next, or what a new financial system or some reoriented financial system will look like. But as we're talking about the decisions we have to make, you and I were discussing young people and how the decisions we make now affect them, or what kind of systems and planet are we leaving them with. And I'm just curious about you speaking more, from the work that you do and also your personal perspective, what we should be doing now to offer them something at least marginally better than what we're giving them right now in this deeply climate impacted state that we're in today in August 10th of 2023.
So difficult questions.
I
I
know.
think yeah. I mean, it's like when I look like in the like our company is like deeply rooted in social media, and if I look at my godson, um, yeah, how they are at the new developments in social media, and what he actually thinks is cool, that actually shocks me even more. So
Yes.
at the moment it's really it's all about spending. I mean, when we were in school, like we didn't care what sneakers we were
No.
wearing. It was like who could climb the higher tree. So it really, there's kind of a shift, really, like to even more spending, and like bigger yachts and cars. And I mean, I sometimes find it a difficult, like to follow that, and to see, like, I mean, I had this discussion several times with youngsters, um like 10, 12, 15-year old, and say, like, I don't get it, like passing by a soccer field, and like all the trash is just laid there, and then I feel like, oh my god, like now I'm like this old man, who complains to
Yes.
tell them to clean up their trash. So I didn't do it, but I asked question, like, how do you feel about it? And they don't care. So I really think it first, you were talking about the next 6 years. We all know that the window is closing, but I think the big impact will be happening after those 5 to 6 years, when we really see that the door is nearly closed. And I think what we leave to our kids, or to the next generation, um, really needs also the kids. So
Yeah.
it's the whole, it's everything. I mean, I also, I know families where the kids are the drivers, and when we talk
Yes.
about the kids, like Greta, she made a huge impact. Because for us, actually, it's difficult, because we grew up like in the golden 80s, 90s, like where really there's like overflow of absolutely everything. Baby boomers, our parents had money, like it was easy for them to get an apartment, to get a house and a nice car, which is much, much more difficult now. If you just have a regular job, it's nearly impossible to live somewhere where we grew up, um, with a normal job. So I think it's it's not what we leave, but I think we have to get a little bit closer to the edge altogether, before the masses, the critical masses, to really get change really rolling, can make a difference. So I think people like you and like me, we are the forerunners. We can start the conversation, but we also have to know, like the limits. And I think sometimes when I watch Al Gore, I feel like, like
Yeah.
he really, like, he loses it. He really is like, he really takes it, like he doesn't understand why no one is following, and all like it's really crazy. And I think we still have to know how to live our life, and do the right influence, to the next generation, and to the others, I put it, or like to the non-believers, let's put it like
Yes.
this. But we just do the job that we do as a forerunner, this like 20 to 25%, but we need another 20% to actually start the change to actually happen.
Yeah, and I think that some of that it is having those conversations. And I agree with you on all fronts. I'm disturbed at some of the social media influencers. And while my work also, because part of this conversation is meeting people where they are, and they are on these platforms, irrespective
Hmm.
of what I feel about them. But it is a conflict because we're there trying to talk about climate justice and sustainability. And I see sitting right alongside that people promoting yacht lifestyles or these incredibly consumptive lifestyles and a number of other toxic behaviors that are beyond the scope of this that I see young people engaging in. And trying to break through that is work, but there's real work because you mentioned Greta, and she inspired a number of young people to start thinking about this and to start activating. And I draw inspiration from that and hope that at least some of those 25% will join us, and get civically engaged. I'm not sure about in Europe where you are, but in the United States, millennials and Gen Zers are about to make up almost 40% of the voting population, which means the United
Crazy.
States,
Yeah.
isn't it crazy? They're going to choose the next president of the United States. So if you all are listening, whatever we do, you all will, if you show up and you turn out and vote, you will choose the next president of the United States. And so, what kind of person do you want to emulate? Do you want to have in that seat?
Hmm.
Is the big question that they're going to have to answer. So there's a big charge on all of us to get engaged across, different disciplines. And we're
And to
coming
take
up on our last.
responsibility. So it's
Yeah.
not. I mean, we can show them, that it is cool and that we can be successful even in a sustainable way, and that we don't need the yacht and the Rolls Royce necessarily. So we can influence like this Gen Ys and Zs, like to really to think a little bit out of the box, and yeah, to really take care of the planet. And I was not aware of that in the US. I mean, it's really
Yes.
it's also very exciting. So that like the old generations, like our parents, who really have a problem, most of them have issues. Like
Mm-hmm.
when I tell my mom, I mean, she takes 1,000 milligram of calcium tablet a day, yet she thinks she has to take the mineral water because of the calcium, the bottled water. So I cannot change her anymore. But like since they become less and less important, it's really the new generation of Gen Ys and Zs that can really drive the change. And I hope they get it quickly, um, and help us on this journey.
I think they will
Yeah,
because
sure.
they are the ones that will foster the change. And it's through the example of folks like you and other people in our generation. I consider, my positionality and that of colleagues is we're educators and waymakers at this point to
Hmm.
offer our experience to people who are willing to accept it and to come with us, but also to help them find their way and to open doors for them to walk through in these challenges.
Yeah,
Because that
absolutely.
is, yeah, that is something that I find when I'm not doing this. I'm on sabbatical right now, but I teach. And so I interact with that generation quite a bit. And that's often the complaint is, I can't get into the job or I can't get the funding or I don't know how to interact with the system. And so what we really need is for some of you all to move out of the way and allow us to participate or to find a way to let us participate. And so I
Well, there's
think that
definitely at the Impact Acoustic, we definitely do that. I stopped. We don't look at. I don't care about the university or like where you come from.
wonderful.
What really matters is we have like when you apply at Impact, we have a very. It's not an easy, like most don't pass it, but it's a relatively easy like a case study, and you have 1 hour to complete it, and that's it. So in this 1 hour out of this case study, we already know how you think, you're if you're dynamic, if you're flexible, if you yeah, if you're a smart person. So we try to hire smart persons, um, who can make an impact, who get it, who can deal with the constant change and development that you have to sustain when you work at our company. So it's quite challenging, I think. Because we are continuously changing. Currently, we are applying at ISO standards, and it's
Oh,
so
wow.
hard, like what we have been doing, like all the work we have done like 6 months ago, like we basically have to shredder, and like all the processes, not all the process, but like a lot of the process changed already again. So it's because we feel like there are better ways to do certain things. So not only with developing new materials, but also like developing as an organization how we deal internally with each other, communication, and so on. I mean, it's a continuous change, and for this we just need smart people, and not school smart, um, but people who can develop. And I think like some of our most successful colleagues, they have literally no education, so it's anything can happen.
It's almost taking liberation theory and operationalizing it within your company. And that's very
Yeah,
cool.
but it's not something that we intend to do. It's just like I don't. I just want, we have daily tasks, we have challenges in the operation, not only concerning like sustainability and material development, but there's always something we can improve. And I think that's what we should focus on.
Yeah, I think that's lovely because in a lot of times we say the language that lived experience is so important, and no university, no matter how whatever the brand name is, can provide you with that. That there's all sorts of talent and intelligence all over, and sometimes like going through traditional structures keeps you from accessing that. But you're one of the first people that I've spoken to that actually takes that lived experience and incorporates it into your company, which is a different kind of justice, right?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know if you thought it through or not.
No, 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 I didn't think it through, but I think it's probably a little bit, like we all have been like in this university, and like we had like this top 20% of like the super smart guys or girls. And when I look back, like actually not many made it through.
Yeah.
Um, I know one that I can recall, amazing, amazing person. Um, but then it's like the midfield, or like just someone who was given a chance. And because I had a lot of changes during my career. I did a lot of different things, like what I mentioned in the beginning, and people didn't take me serious anymore because I failed. I failed many times. My family didn't take me serious anymore and said, "Oh my God, what's the next thing now?" um, so I think through that, and I didn't change. I always had this in me. It was just like probably at the wrong place, the wrong time, and circumstances didn't add up. But it was always I didn't change. I was the same 20 years ago. So also like age doesn't really matter. I mean, of course, like when you're older, like you made more mistakes, that helps. But the passion, which is the most important thing, and the willingness to stay on something for a long time, even you fall sometimes in between, and to get up and to continue, that's the most important thing. And you have that at 25 the same way as you have it with 35. I mean, you don't change your personality.
Yeah, that's true. And thank you for sharing that. And I'm excited for you that your company has grown and continues to grow. And it looks like success to me in a number of different ways, both for yourself and for the people you're employing and trying to help. So thank you so much for your great work and for joining me today. And
Thank you
for
very much,
our,
Monica, and I hope we can repeat that sometime in the future, when our paths cross again.
I certainly hope so. I have no intention of stopping, and you're not giving me energy that you have any intention of stopping.
No, we will not stop.
So we will see each other again. And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on the Undivide Project podcast, the Changemakers edition. You can find this podcast on all of your favorite podcast locations: Apple, Spotify, Deezer, and on YouTube as a video cast.